Hello everyone, this is Vishal from Bitco Technologies and today's topic is writing better functions in C. So today we are going to discuss how we can write functions which could be reused at number of places easily. How could we make functions independent? So let's get started. Now consider that I'm trying to write a function which will add two numbers. So I'll just declare the function void add, and right now my function add is not accepting any arguments and it's not returning any values. So I'll say void add, and inside this function add I'm going to declare two variables num1 and num2. I'll declare another variable that is result to hold result, and I'll be just scanning the input, right? Oh, sorry, into numbers, something like this, and then I'll say scanf, right? %t ampersand num1 ampersand num2. Okay, so I declared num1 num2 and result. I'm doing the input part. Okay, so I'll just put a comment. This is my input part. Okay, and then we'll be doing the data processing, which is very simple in this case, right? That is, add the numbers, store the results into the variable result, right? So this is what we got, num1 plus num2. The result have been assigned to the variable result. So this is our simple data processing logic, and then finally I'll be writing the output stub. So I'll be saying printf. Okay, I'll be printing the result. I'll just format the output a little. Okay, so I'm going to print the value of result like this. Okay, that's so simple. So I got this function add. This function add is mainly having three parts. You can see input part, data processing part, and the output part. Okay, now let's get back to main. I already declared this function. It accepts no arguments, so I'll explicitly make it void. Okay, so you can see the warning is gone now. Okay, now I'll call this function that is add and done, right? So when my main function starts, I'm calling function add. Function add is doing input, data processing, and output. Let's have a quick run. Okay, so here it goes. Enter numbers. I'll enter 11 and 22. Result is 33. Okay. Now this function add is doing its job, right? It is scanning two numbers from the user, it is processing the data, adding the numbers, storing the results into the result variable, and outputting the value of result variable. However, this function is not as independent as it should be, or you can say this is not a good function. Now just imagine if there is a situation that your input is coming from some another source than a keyboard, right? So in this case, this function is always going to read the input from the keyboard. And imagine there is a situation wherein your input is coming from a file, maybe from a database or over the network connection. In that case, we cannot use this function. That's the first problem with this function, right? The function says I will always get my input from the keyboard, wherein you would like to have the flexibility that the input should be able to come from different sources, maybe a file, a database, a scanner, network connection, anything. The function is rigid in that case, right? It's having a fixed way of input. Okay, that is making this function not independent, that is making this function rigid. So what I would like to do first thing is like remove this input part from this function. So let's do it. To make it independent, to make it flexible, I'll remove this function, because there could be different situations, right, wherein you would be getting the input from different sources and you would like to use this function add to add the numbers, right? Okay, so the first thing is that a function should avoid input. Okay, so you should avoid doing the input part inside the function. Okay, instead of that, you do the input yourself. So I will put it over here like, so I'll put this input part back to the function main from where you're calling that function. Okay, and right, and then you call this function that is add, sorry. Okay, and of course I have to declare this num1 and num2. So you can see in this case, the good thing is that the function main is doing the input part. So it's totally up to the function main how it wants to scan those numbers, how it wants to get those numbers as the input. Then it is calling this function add. Now the function main wants the function add to work on num1 and num2. So we will pass num1 and num2 as an argument, as an input to the function add. And let's make some changes here. So here also I'll call them as num1 and num2, right? Variables can have same name but in different scopes. So this is absolutely fine. Okay, so I have got this function add which is going to accept as an argument num1 and num2. I need to make changes to the declaration. So here I'll say integer and integer. So I'm informing the compiler that I'm going to use function add which accepts 2 integer arguments and returns nothing. Okay, that is what we have got. Okay, so you can see the build has succeeded. So the good part is that in function main we're doing the input. Function add is not going to do the input, right? And it's just going to get the input as an argument. So the function add will receive the input as the arguments. It will do the data processing and then output. So this is a little better way. So if I run the function, you can see it's not going to change. The output will not change. I'll enter 11, 22, it's printing 33. Absolutely fine. That is what we were expecting. However, the function is still not as independent as it should be. So the good part, what we achieved is remove the input part from the function add, put it back to the source. Like, so whoever calls the function add, it is their responsibility to do the input part. The function add says, just give me the data which you want to process, I will process that data. This is good, right? But still this function add is little rigid because it's having fixed way of outputting the data. The function add says I will always output the results like this, like result is equals to and something like that, right? Now this is not a good thing because you may like to do something different with the output. It's not necessary that you're always going to print the output like this. Okay, you would like to get the results back, hand it over to someone else. You would like to store those results somewhere in memory, or you would like to store those results in file, database. Do something different with the result than printing it. You may like to print it also, but not always. Like, imagine if I'm using this function add to perform addition in a calculator application. You don't print the results like this after addition in a calculator, or you don't print the result like this after performing addition in a banking system or inventory system, like that. So this is the problem. Okay, so to fix this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this output part, and instead of outputting, the function add will just return the results back to the caller, right? So the function add is no more going to do the output, sorry. Okay, it is just going to return the results to the calling function, which is main in this case. And because my function add is returning something, I'll change its return type to integer. Here also in declaration, I'll make changes. I'll change the return type to integer. So you can see what this function add is doing now, right? The function add is getting the input as an argument, so it's not doing the input part. What it is doing is the data processing part. It is not even performing the output. Instead of that, it is just returning the final results to the calling function, which is main in this case. This is good. Now if you need those results in main, so you declare a variable here in main, say result is equals to this, and then you do whatever you want to do with results. In this case, still I'm going to print it. So result is equals to %t, I'll go to /n and result. So obviously I'm still printing the results back into the function main, but you can do something different also. Once you got those results, you do something different, whatever you want, put it in a file like we discussed, right? Okay, now let's have a final look at this function add. Now this is flexible function. This is the best implementation of function add. So function add is receiving the input as an argument. So function add is not doing any input part. It is just doing the data processing. It's not doing any output even. It is just returning the results to the calling function. You can see its return type is integer, right? Now this function add is quite flexible, and you can use this function add at number of places, right? Okay, so a function, when you're writing a function should be dependent only on the arguments what it receives, and it should process those arguments, it should process the input, return the results. This is better way of writing functions. Now I'm not saying you should never do output or input kind of things, okay, but I'm asking you to understand the situation. I'm asking you to understand how you can make your functions as independent as it could be, right? So this add function, I guess it gives you a very clear idea about how to write a function which is independent, which is flexible, so that you can reuse it at number of places. I hope you have enjoyed this session and understood it properly. I'll see you in the next session. Meanwhile, happy learning.